Chicago Gay Liberation, Akyva Van, Jessica Acosta, and Adriana Calderon. The Chicago Gay Liberation took place in the 20th century. During this time period, many people started to come out the closet. Life was very stressful for gays. Many homosexual men had a double life. Homosexuals were considered abnormal and were discriminated. In Chicago in 1924, the very first organization to support gay groups was founded by Henry Gerbers. The Society for Human Rights published their first homosexual publications, Friendship and Freedom. Soon after the founding of the society, it disbanded due to the pressure of politics. Laws were passed against homosexuals. It was against the law to be seen in public with the same gender, being affectionate, wearing the wrong attire, and gay bars were prohibited.
If a homosexual was caught violating any laws, he would be brutally beaten and broadcasted on television. Being on television doesn't seem like harsh punishment, but at this time period, it truly was. Once on the media, they lost their jobs, friends, and their identity was ridiculed. The sad truth is that even if they went to court to fight for their rights, they would never win the case because of the sodomy laws passed against them. A lot of people lost their jobs. They were denied an application, they couldn't adopt, buy a home, they were banned from living with the same sex, and dropped from military services, all because they were suspected or they were caught being gay. To be exact, 1,700 federal job applicants were denied, 4,380 people were discharged from the military, and 420 were fired from their government jobs.
December 15, 1950, a Senate report titled Employment of Homosexuals and Other Sex Perverts in Government was distributed to Congress. The report stated homosexuality was a mental illness and those who had the disease lacked the stability of a normal person. The purging of the LGBT group soon came to be known as the Lavender Scare. Right after the Senate's report came out, the American Psychiatric Association listed homosexuality as a sociopathic personality disturbance.
There is no empirical or scientific data that supported this. Many professionals in medicine, mental health, and social sciences soon started to question in this categorization due to the lack of evidence. April 27, 1953, Dwight Eisenhower signed an executive order. This executive order banned all homosexuals from working for the federal government or its private contractors. This order also listed homosexuals as a security risk along with alcoholics and neurotics.
During the 1960s and 1970s, gays and lesbians turned to the court system for protection against federal job discrimination. The court cases of Norton v. Macy, 1969, Vigil v. Post Office Department, 1969, Schlegel v. United States, 1969, and Society for Individual Rights v. Hampton, 1973, as well as changing public attitudes concerning homosexuals and homosexuality, helped undermine the Civil Service Commission's policy.
On August 30, 1956, Evelyn Hooker shared her paper, The Adjustment of the Male Over Homosexual, with the American Association of Chicago. After reading her paper, the administrators took action and began psychological tests on both heterosexual and homosexual males. Evelyn's research concluded that heterosexual and homosexuals do not differ. Her experiment also became very influential, changing perceptions of homosexuality. In 1953, the Mattachine Society published its first gay rights magazine called One.
After several phases of harassment from the United States Postal Services and from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Postmaster of Los Angeles declared the October 1954 issue unmailable under Comstock laws. January 13, 1958, the Supreme Court rules in favor with the LGBT group magazine One. They ruled in their favor because their First Amendment right was being violated. This was the first time in history where any higher power ruled in favor with homosexuals. January 1, 1962, Illinois became the very first state to repeal the sodomy laws decriminalizing homosexuality.
After Illinois decriminalized homosexuality, many riots took place in other states. Everything went into chaos. Lots of harassment was going on. Gay bars were being raided by police officers. Transgenders had no support and were the most vulnerable at the time. Voices needed to be heard. It was just a matter of time. Then in 1964, several gay men and lesbians led by Robert Basker and attorney Pearl Hart reconstituted the organization as a more politically active group in response to escalating police harassment at gay bars. It was Rob Basker and Pearl Hart who organized support groups such as the Daughters of Bilitis and the Madishine Society. The Daughters of Bilitis and the Madishine Society were collectively referred to as homophile organizations. Local chapters of both groups existed in Chicago by 1955. These organizations attempted to secure social acceptance and understanding of lesbians and gay men through educational efforts. The Chicago chapter of the Madishine Society engaged in few overtly political activities and functioned primarily as a social group. When gay bars were becoming more of an issue in society, the Madishine Society of the Midwest monitored police harassment at gay bars. The Madishine Society published a politically conscious newsletter and by 1968 succeeded in securing ACLU support and defending gay men arrested by the police. This signaled a fundamental shift in how lesbians and gay men would organize politically.
The biggest riot that occurred during the phase where police officers were raiding gay bars was the Stonewall Riot. The only difference was that this time homosexuals fought back. At this time, they wanted to have their voice heard. They came back for 3 days, instigating a fight, and for those 3 days, they put down their foot because this riot was such a huge spark in Chicago gay history, it led to the very first Gay Pride Parade. On February of 1970, Chicago gay supporters had observed all-campus organization. They organized a dance with over 600 participants and marched in an anti-war
At last, the very first Gay Pride Parade was organized on June 27, 1970. The parade gave out a voice to all the homosexuals who were being belittled by the United States. The Chicago Gay Pride Parade started from Washington Park, also known as Bughouse Square, to the Water Tower at the intersection of Michigan and Chicago Avenues, then marched on to the Civic Center, which is now Richard J. Daley Plaza. Aside from all the chaos, another great event took place on December 15, 1973. The American Psychiatric Board votes to remove homosexuality from the mental illness list. Leaders formalized their partnership in the Illinois Federation for Human Rights, which became Equality Illinois. Equality Illinois successfully lobbied at the county level to extend protection against discrimination for lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals to all of Cook County in 1993. In 1997, Evanston became the first city in Illinois to provide this protection to transgender individuals, signaling new directions for civil rights movements based on sexual identity. 5 years later, transgender activists in Chicago successfully lobbied to add gender identity to the list of protections provided by the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance. The Chicago Human Rights Ordinance was formed to protect lesbians, gay men, and bisexuals from discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodation. Over the course of the next 2 decades, the early activism of both Madison's Midwest and Chicago gay liberation would lead to important political victories for gay men and lesbians in Chicago. Today, because of the gay rights movement, homosexuals have rights. They have the right in Illinois to maintain a job, buy a house, and to be someone important. It is against the law to discriminate against sexual orientation. Homosexuals have as much rights as heterosexuals, aside from marriage. Many victories were won, and because of all the stress and hard work gay activists made, homosexuals were allowed to be in public with their loved ones. And if one day an ignorant person comes along and asks, what good did the Chicago gay liberation do? One can stand their ground and say with confidence, the Chicago gay liberation gave homosexuals equality.